Now it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation.
What are you people? On dope?
Where you can toke.
I inhale frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
10 federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great.
Just not cannabis.
Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel? Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical Russ Belville.
Welcome, everybody. It's the 4 o'clock hour here in the Pacific Time Zone. I'm Radical Russ. Glad to have you here. It's a beautiful day in Portland, Oregon. It's actually shorts weather here today. Absolutely blue skies. Mount Hood to my, just about 1 o'clock from where I'm looking. Straight out this 26th floor condo. Mount Hood out there to about the 1 o'clock position, and Mount St. Helens at about the 9 o'clock position. What a gorgeous day. I'm glad we could be here together, talk a little bit about marijuana and legalization and what's happening. Want to play something real quick for you. A friend of the show out there. Oh, before I forget, though, we have to set the mood. There we go. There we go. We're feeling a little stonier now, aren't we? I got to light up for this one. Hold on. Oh, yeah. In case you don't recognize the raga, that is the legendary sitar master, Ravi Shankar. It's Ravi Shankar's 96th birthday today, and if you paid attention to Google today, you noticed they had a sitar in the Google Doodle to honor his birthday. Also, some of you may not know he's Nora Jones's dad, Ravi Shankar. Now, he passed away in 2012, but he popularized the sitar. He made it fashionable when the Beatles were in their hippy-dippy drug phase, and they discovered how stony a sitar is. And I do believe, if you were to rank the instruments from stoniest to least stony, I do believe the sitar is the stoniest instrument out there. I think up in the top 5 would have to be sitar, didgeridoo, hurdy-gurdy, mouth harp. What else is stony, man? I don't know. Bassoon, I think. A bassoon, I think, is kind of a stony instrument. At the bottom of the stoniest list, the least stony instrument, I think, has to be accordion. I have no science behind this. I'm just guessing, right? Anyway, that's little Ravi Shankar for the day. Happy birthday, Ravi Shankar. But I wanted to play this little clip that I got from my friend David Murray. And he's with a group called Cannabis Reformers for Bernie. And they've got a website, Yes He Can, C-A-N-N, Yes He Can, .org or .com? YesHeCan.com, Cannabis Reformers for Bernie. So we're going to play a little bit of Cannabis Reformers for Bernie when we come back from our break, right after we pay a little bit of the bills. Also coming up on this hour, too, we've got a new report from the Public Policy Institute of California that says what we ought to do if we're going to legalize marijuana in California. And what do you know? most of it lines up with the Adult Use of Marijuana Act. It's almost as if the people that put that act together did some homework and recognized what would fly in California before they put it to paper. It's an interesting concept, I know. Writing a legalization initiative based on what the people want rather than what stoners want. Fascinating, isn't it? Also coming up on the show, we will talk about the Arizona Kremla campaign. I think it's Kremla. Challenging Bill Montgomery down there for taking money from the booze industry. And then we're taking a look at DeKalb City, Georgia, an Atlanta suburb looking to decriminalize. That's right, decriminalization is even making its way to Georgia. All that coming up in just a couple minutes. I'm Radical Russ.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Earn your PhD in THC monetization with CannabisRadio.com. Don't be late.
Ganjapreneur.com, your guide to the cannabis business world. Ganjapreneur.com is a comprehensive resource for cannabis professionals and entrepreneurs. Download the Ganjapreneur app on your smartphone or tablet to catch up on cannabis industry news, scroll through our daily job listings, and learn about successful cannabis companies, executives, and investors. Ganjapreneur.com, helping ganjapreneurs grow.
Educator, author, and advocate Dr. Mitch Earlywine is here to tackle the burning issues.
And I'm here to clear up the myths about cannabis and burn them away with science.
CannabisRadio.com presents a no-holds-barred platform that seeks to redefine and revolutionize the entire scope of the cannabis culture while opening the door for more to join the cannabis crusade.
Dr. Kevin Hill.
You can't ignore the fact that, like alcohol, most people who use don't have a problem. So I think that you need to think about policy in that way while educating people properly about marijuana. I think that's the way to go.
Burning issues, only on CannabisRadio.com.
You're not high. You're listening to the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
The Supreme Court is wrong on the Second Amendment.
Okay, maybe you're high, too.
The Russ Belville Show is proudly sponsored by the Marijuana Business Association. The MJBA, called by NBC News the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, is the fastest growing business association in the fastest growing industry in America. I've been working with the MJBA for years, and I personally invite you to join the MJBA. MJBA also publishes the popular MJ Headline News on Facebook and the MJNewsNetwork.com and Marijuana Channel 1 on YouTube. Visit mjba.net for more details.
Yarr, thar be pirates here. Har, 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 har. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Oh, yeah, pretty excited about the Democratic primary campaign. It's really heating up, folks. Bernie Sanders is finally turning up the heat on Hillary Clinton. And to be honest, it's something I wish he'd have been doing a little earlier in the campaign. But doggone it, Bernie's just a swell guy. And he didn't want to have that air of it being a negative campaign. But I think calling it negative campaigning is a framing job from the Clinton side of things. There's nothing negative about pointing out someone's record. There's nothing negative about pointing out someone's judgment, right? They say, oh, it should be about the issues. Don't make it personal. Well, yeah, but if the issue is the entrenched oligarchy that owns both political parties, then calling into question someone who's made millions of dollars from that entrenched oligarchy is the issue. It's not personal. It is the issue. Corruption. That's what we're talking about. It's the rigged system, stupid. So yeah, I don't buy this. Oh, Bernie's gone negative. No, Bernie's just calling out Hillary Clinton on her record and her background and her terrible judgment. I mean, just this last couple of weeks, we've had this revelation about the the Panama Papers, the terrible corruption in Panama that has taken down the government of Iceland and looks to ensnare some other world leaders and corporate heads as well. Now, maybe not so much American in this case, because we've got our own tax loopholes and shelters and havens and corruption in America. We don't have to go all the way to Panama for that. But some of these other countries, where they have oversight and functioning democracies, and they actually do have to go all the way to Panama. And this goes back to 2011. On successive days, Hillary Clinton stood up and praised the Panama trade deal and how great it was. And on the day before, Bernie Sanders had stood up and said, this is a terrible deal, and Panama's known for this terrible corruption. And, gee, who was right again? Who was right again when it came to judgment? Bernie Sanders. So there's no secret that I'm, totally feeling the burn here on the Russ Belville Show. And I've been contacted by the Bernie or Bust people, and we're going to have them on the show pretty soon. And I was contacted by our friend David Murray, who turned me on to the fact that he's a part of this Yes He Can website, yeshecan.com. That's can with two N's, like cannabis, right? Yes He Can. And it's Burners for Bernie. It's all about cannabis reformers for Bernie Sanders. Got a nice looking website here, and they highlight Bernie's stand against the war on drugs and the private prisons and so forth. And they got a little promotional audio that I wanted to play for you just because it's something I support. So let's hear from the cannabis advocates for Bernie Sanders.
What we're trying to do is create a framework.
Oh, well, that's not loud enough. We're going to have to get that fixed. Okay, we'll fix that MP3 there, see if we can get that a little louder for you. But again, yeshecan.org is the website if you're interested in that. And, of course, Bernie Sanders, only major party candidate out there who's advocating for an absolute descheduling of marijuana, not rescheduling, but descheduling. Hillary Clinton, she's still trying to wrap her mind around rescheduling marijuana. And even that's a huge leap for someone like her. So we shall see how that turns out. The Burners for Bernie post that I put up on our marijuana politics page, if you want to check that out, it's available as well. And you can hear more or read more of my point on that. We've got pipes for sale with Bernie Sanders logo. They've got all sorts of rolling papers and an ashtray and so much more. You can check that out. Burners for Bernie is the post up on marijuanapolitics.com. I've also got a post up on huffingtonpost.com. Check out my author page there if you want to know more. And we'll find that. Let me get this MP3 from the Cannabis Advocates for Bernie. We're trying to get this loaded up into the audio folder and converted so you can actually hear it. So pardon me while I do some on-the-fly amplification here in Audacity. And we'll see if we can just run this for you right now and if you'll be able to hear it this time.
What we're trying to do is create a framework and an infrastructure that will allow people around the country to organize in their communities on a grassroots basis, to find other cannabis supporters that are also Bernie supporters, to get out, organize, be at public events, organize your own events, viewing parties. If there's a cannabis-related thing, go out, get in force, represent the campaign, and let your other cannabis reformers and advocates know where he stands, and try to galvanize this group. Because even a majority of Republican millennials support cannabis deregulation.
I didn't know that. Makes sense to me.
And Bernie is a fantastic civil libertarian when it comes down to it. So there's a huge pool of particularly youth and all the way up to my age and older that could be brought in and made enthusiastic and get out and vote on this election.
Can people bring their marijuana to these parties and
some it depends.
No, if they're 21 and over, they probably could.
It depends where you're at.
Oh, okay.
I won't say there's a universal. I've certainly been to ones where it's discouraged or you're asked
no, makes sense. I mean, just legality rather than it's kosher, sort of.
But anyway,
that
that's so the house parties are something to look forward to.
Yes.
And
in fact, after the first debate, we actually hosted at the world famous Cannabis Cafe a secondary. We called it an afterburn.
An afterburn.
Where we did a secondary screening of the debate, and if you wanted to light up, it was a cannabis friendly.
Well, that's a very nice thing.
Yeah, dang shame that the world famous Cannabis Cafe has had to shut down because of because of the state of Oregon and their Clean Air Act that forbids cannabis smoking indoors, even though there's been no scientific backing to any harms secondhand smoke-wise, which is the entire basis of our Clean Air Act, was the harms of secondhand tobacco smoke. Regardless, Cannabis Cafe is closed, but the Northwest Cannabis Club, I think, still remains open, and we hope there will be more politically related cannabis events for people to be able to attend like this. Watching some of those Republican debates, about the only way you could get through it is smoking a little herb, if you ask me. Now, speaking of the Democratic campaign, just a quick note here. Folks in my chat room pointed this one out to me, and it's almost as if the Hillary Clinton campaign is in this slow motion self-destruct mode, and it's just very interesting to watch. Bill Clinton, who I believe is one of the most gifted politicians of our time as far as his charisma and his rhetoric and just his political skill, really laid a turd in the punch bowl here just now. This was just a little bit ago in Philadelphia. Now, you remember how Hillary Clinton back in the 90s referred to the Clinton crime bill, the one that started this whole mass incarceration problem we've got, and was speaking about how these black kids, the inner city kids, these gangs, were not like normal kids. They're super predators, and they have to be brought to heel. You can ask how they got that way. You can ask how it happened. But first, they have to be brought to heel. And this was a big controversy when she was confronted by a Black Lives Matter protester at one of her paid engagements where you have to spend hundreds or thousands of dollars to get in to see her, and confronted her on those comments and was briskly escorted out by Secret Service. So this has been a bit of an issue for Hillary, this whole super predators, crime bill sort of thing. And Bill Clinton in Pennsylvania today was interrupted by a Black Lives Matter protester. And his response, coming from somebody who's usually pretty politically savvy, was pretty damn tone deaf. I'll let you be the judge. Here's a listen. Oh, well, there'll be a listen as soon as I turn that mute off. Where is that at? There's the mute. Okay, let's make that happen again.
Whoa. Wait. I don't want to deal with them all. Come on. No. Come on. Wait. Understand, this is what's the matter. I don't know how you would characterize the gang leaders who got 13-year-old kids hopped up on crack and sent them out onto the street to murder other African-American children. Maybe you thought they were good citizens. She didn't. You are defending the people who kill the lives you say matter. Tell the truth. You are defending the people who cause young people to go out and take guns. There was a 13-year-old girl in Washington, D.C. who was planting her own photo. How would you do it? Now, look at this other one. Look at this. That's not true. Now, let's talk about the other thing.
The woman had a sign there that said Clinton crime bill destroyed our communities. And that's the sign he was pointing to and saying, that's not true. Well, Bill Clinton, you are sure going to hear a lot about this, defending the people, accusing Black Lives Matter protesters of defending the killing of young black people. It'll be interesting to see how this gets played in the media and how Hillary Clinton manages to, or wants to try to wiggle her way out of this one. That's a pretty damning quote. Thanks to the chat room for bringing that up to us. We always appreciate that support here on the Russ Belville Show.
From now on, you will speak only when spoken to.
That could be some good advice. Happy 420, everyone, from beautiful legal Potland, Oregon. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful today. This makes up for those months and months of gray and wet. Almost. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to look at that Public Policy Institute of California report on legalization and how it stacks up against the Adult Use of Marijuana Act.
Forwarding the cause of legalization and research of the growing cannabis industry, one podcast at a time. The Cannabis Radio Network.
The next generation of vaporizers has arrived. Vuber vaporizers are blazing the way with unparalleled technology for oil, concentrate, or dry flower pens. Providing unsurpassed customer service and expert craftsmanship, Vuber vaporizers use cutting-edge technology, providing a power-packed, smoother vapor with a lifetime guarantee. Experience vaporizing the way it was meant to be. The Vuber way.
It's time for Cannabis Facts about teen drug use from Robert Platshorn's thesilvertour.org. This message is supported by our donors and Hemp Inc., a public company poised to lead America's hemp revolution at hempinc.com. A recent survey by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control indicates that in states that have legalized medical marijuana, the rate of marijuana consumption among high school students has not increased. In fact, in legal states like Colorado, teen use has actually decreased significantly. It's simply no longer a big deal for teenagers in legal states. This was Cannabis Facts from thesilvertour.org, an educational nonprofit supported by our donors and Hemp Inc., a public company poised to lead America's hemp revolution at hempinc.com.
You're not high. You're listening to the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
I do not like them, Sam. I do not like green eggs and ham.
Okay. Maybe you're high, too.
Coming soon to a city near you, Cannabis Finance Boot Camp. Get all your cannabis accounting, legal, and compliance questions answered by their knowledgeable panel of industry experts who want to help your cannabis boom. Whether you're a grower, dispensary operator, or a newcomer to the field, your cannabis needs Cannabis Finance Boot Camp. For information on upcoming events, visit CannabisFinanceBootCamp.com.
Hello, Mr. Man. Hi. I'm working. I'm sorry. No food till this is done. This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everyone. 23 after the hour here from beautiful legal Potland, Oregon, coming to you live from the banks of the Willamette River. Gorgeous day outside. All blue and green everywhere you look. Just like Cascadia. There's an important report that we want to get to here from the Public Policy Institute of California, well-respected organization. And the report is called Regulating Marijuana in California. It was released today. And it notes that neither overall marijuana use nor use by young people have risen dramatically in Washington and Colorado, and recommends any approach to adult use legalization in California include maximum regulatory flexibility, strong data collection, reporting, and oversight, and a restrictive regulatory structure. And it just so happens that the recommendations made by the Public Policy Institute of California very closely align with the structure of the Adult Use of Marijuana Act. In the report, they said California should approach legalization with an eye toward flexibility. Well, the Adult Use of Marijuana Act does that. It has regulatory flexibility and allows the legislature to amend the regulatory provisions, by a majority vote, so they can make adjustments and improvements. The report says California should include a strong and transparent reporting system. Well, the Adult Use of Marijuana Act does that. There's the Bureau of State Audits that will conduct annual audits over the marijuana industry. The act provides $10 million to public universities to research and evaluate the implementation and effect of the new law. And they'll report to the legislature and the governor. And the universities will study public health, public safety, economy, and effectiveness of legalization. And all of these reports, talk about transparency, all these reports will be made available to the public. In the report, it says California should adopt a relatively restrictive regulatory model for both the recreational and medical markets. Adult Use of Marijuana Act does that. It copies some of the MMRSA regulations, the new medical marijuana regulations, and expands upon them in a tightly controlled, regulated, taxed environment. The PPIC report says California should include a robust regulation of the entire supply chain. And the Adult Use of Marijuana Act does that for both medical and non-medical. They've got the Department of Consumer Affairs, Department of Public Health, Department of Food and Agriculture, all involved in the regulation of different parts of the supply chain. They say there should be a seed-to-sale tracking system, and the Adult Use of Marijuana Act includes that. The report says stiff penalties to suppress the illegal market are essential. That remains as well, although in a lot of cases, the Adult Use of Marijuana Act takes things that are guaranteed felonies and reduces them to what are called wobblers under California law. And a wobbler is one where the prosecutor can decide whether to charge it as a misdemeanor or charge it as a felony. So that's back to that whole flexibility part that was mentioned earlier. There's also a need for penalties for diverting marijuana to other states, and that is covered by Adult Use of Marijuana Act, which also provides revenue to law enforcement, so it has the resources to crack down on the illicit market. According to the PPIC report, California must set limits on the scale and location of production operations. These are these buffer zones from schools and youth centers and so forth. The minimum buffer is 600 feet under the Adult Use of Marijuana Act, but localities can expand that. And also mega grows, large cultivation licenses, won't be issued in the first 5 years. That's going to be to allow the existing growers to kind of build up over that 5-year period. And even after that 5-year period, once they start licensing larger grows, they can have restrictions on vertical integration, just like the medical marijuana law does right now. In the report, production regulations might include residency requirements, and that is a requirement in the Adult Use of Marijuana Act. You have to be a resident from on or before January 1st, 2015 to be able to get yourself a license. And I believe that expires by 2020, so there won't be a residency requirement after that 5 years. The report asks that California needs specific environmental protections. There are pages and pages of these environmental protections and funding to restore the lands damaged by illegal marijuana grows. And marijuana businesses have to abide by environmental laws like the Environmental Quality Act, the Endangered Species Act, and the Clean Water Act. The report underscores the need for proper labeling, packaging, and testing of edibles. The Adult Use of Marijuana Act would produce the strictest regulations on that in the world to protect children from non-medical marijuana. Also, warnings on allergens, whether there's, peanuts or other known allergens involved in the manufacture, and in small portion sizes. Packaging has to be resealable, child-resistant, and not attractive to children. That's all covered in the Adult Use of Marijuana Act. The report says Colorado and Washington prohibit the public use of marijuana, confine sales to marijuana-only stores, and give local government control over regulating stores. The Adult Use of Marijuana Act does that. There will be no public consumption of marijuana, and stores won't allow anyone to sell alcohol or tobacco or publicly consume marijuana in the stores. However, there is a provision within the Adult Use of Marijuana Act that could lead to the licensing of adult use venues. I understand why they didn't mention this in this press release, because they're trying to show this press release is really for the squares out there to convince them that they're serious about regulating this strictly. I don't think they want that known. this will be interesting as the Adult Use of Marijuana Act is being campaigned over. If the opponents seize upon that, the fact that there could be pot lounges. The PPIC report recommends restricting non-medical use to adults age 21 and over. Well, that's already done. 21 is the age for non-medical use under Adult Use of Marijuana Act. Recommendations for measures to prevent minors from entering marijuana stores. Adult Marijuana Act does that. Strong penalties who sell to minors. We've got that in Adult Use of Marijuana Act. Public education campaign about driving while impaired. The Adult Use of Marijuana Act does that. The report asks for drug driving prevention that requires training and the development of an accurate practical test for marijuana that can withstand court scrutiny. This is interesting because the Adult Use of Marijuana Act is not proposing a per se DUID limit like a 5 nanogram thing that we have in Washington or Colorado. They are providing funds to the California Highway Patrol to establish and adopt a protocol to determine whether a driver is impaired by any substance, including marijuana, and funds for training DREs, drug recognition experts. This may be the best politically that we can expect when we have serious legalization proposals out there. Oregon did something similar. And there was a lot of pressure to put a per se DUID in our law, but Anthony Johnson, that was a deal breaker for him. It wasn't going to happen. But the compromise is, look, we know you want a standard. You know we want it to be scientifically accurate. So the compromise is we'll fund some scientific studies on how you determine if someone's too impaired to drive under marijuana. And this has been a good political move because from their point of view, from the law enforcement, from the square point of view, they're like, yes, okay, we'll do the studies and then the scientists will tell us what the magic number is. But it's good from our point of view because we know what the science is going to tell them. The science is going to tell them there is no magic number. There's no number you can come up with that guarantees that the person that you just pulled over is too high to drive a car. That number doesn't exist. I'm over any per se DUID limit when I wake up in the morning after 8 hours of sleeping. Just because I'm a big guy, I'm 245 pounds, right? And I got a lot of fat on me and I smoke a lot of pot and that pot stays in my fat cells. And when I sleep, it metabolizes. And when I wake up, I'm probably over 5 when I wake up. But no way am I too impaired to drive a car. We had that, was it KIRO that did the marijuana driving simulation? Addie Norton, the medical marijuana patient, shows up at 15 nanograms. Or 13, I think it was. She's already over twice the legal limit. She gets up to 8 or 11 times the legal limit. She's up to 0.56, or she's at 56 nanograms before her driving even becomes borderline. That's a quote from the drug recognition expert cop. Borderline at 56. So there's no magic number. So when the Adult Use of Marijuana Act says, okay, we're going to give California Highway Patrol a bunch of money to try to find a magic number, as long as they're required to back that up with science, we're going to be fine because they won't find a magic number. Now, the cynic in me is going to tell you what they will do. And I mentioned this. This was the subject of my rant. Was it yesterday or the day before? I'll tell you what's going to happen. Because you cannot find a magic number that tells you someone's too impaired to drive. What they will start searching for is a magic number that tells them how long ago you smoked pot. They'll shift the argument from being whether or not you're actually impaired to whether or not you just recently smoked pot. And infer, you're supposed to infer that that means you're too impaired. They're going to imply it. They're going to say, oh, we've got this test that shows that you smoked pot within the last 2 hours. We'll swab your cheek or you'll blow into a device or whatever it is, but we'll discover whether or not you smoked pot in the past 2 hours. And that'll become the standard that says you're too impaired to drive. Regardless of whether or not you just smoked pot, 5 minutes ago, but you're still driving fine, it's not going to matter. And the argument they'll make is that with alcohol, if you're at a 0.08 in your blood, you got to wait a couple hours before you go drive. It takes a couple hours to metabolize that. So they'll say, well, gee, if you expect the drinker to have to wait 2 hours before driving, why is it not fair to expect the toker to wait a couple hours before driving? You said treat it like alcohol. And then we're going to be forced in this position of having to say, but it's different because within the 2 hours of drinking at 0.08, you're still impaired. But within the 2 hours of smoking pot, you're not impaired. And they'll just turn that and say, oh, so are you saying it's okay to smoke pot and drive? Because if it's less than 2 hours, then it could be less than an hour, and then it could be less than a half hour, and then it could be, indistinguishable from actually just smoking pot and driving. Now, you know, and I know, that plenty of people can smoke pot and drive. We've seen it with our own damn eyes. I have been all across this country in 20 different states now. And in every one of them, I've ridden in a car with a driver who has either recently smoked pot, like the last 5 minutes just smoked pot, or was smoking pot in the car while driving. We've all seen it. This is the not so secret of the marijuana world. Smoking and driving go together like smoking and driving. It's a road trip legend. It's an iconic part of a long, barren wilderness road trip. Unfortunately, the public doesn't see it that way, and this is going to be the big battle of the legalization era. Mark my words. We got to take a break. We'll come back with more on the cannabis movement and marijuana law reform when we return.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Next to THC and CBD, you can now add CBR to your cannabis vernacular. CBR as in CannabisRadio.com.
Great websites today need expert web design and development and need to be e-commerce ready and mobile friendly. But building a marketable and profitable website can be an uphill climb. Ready to make your new website or replace your existing website? Think Orange as the new way to get in the black. Orange Hill Development works with Fortune 500 companies and offer the same top quality development service at a fraction of what other providers charge. Brands like Absolute, Carlsberg, and Nestea trust Orange Hill Development. Find out why you should trust your website with Orange Hill. Contact Orange Hill for a consultation today at orangehilldevelopment.com.
CannabisRadio.com keeps you in the know Monday through Friday on air and on demand with Cannabis Radio News. Presented with the definitive worldwide news source, the Associated Press. Stay informed with exclusive news on all things cannabis. Cannabis Radio News, live weeknights at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, during the Russ Belville Show, or download the daily podcast exclusively on CannabisRadio.com, as well as iTunes, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. When breaking news happens in the cannabis industry, Cannabis Radio News delivers the details first.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. Only on CannabisRadio.com.
Are you playing an acoustic guitar but want to be louder without an amp? Try a resonator guitar. The fingerboard extension has National Resophonic and other resonators, square necks and round necks. Stop by the Fingerboard Extension downtown Corvallis at 120 Northwest 2nd Street today, or check out its inventory on the web at fingerboardextension.com. Go wild hog in the woods.
I have a package here for Radical Rick. Is there a Radical Rick here? How about a Rick Russ? Any Rick Russ? Somebody named Freddie Barack has sent him a package. Anybody? What is that? Sounds like a skunk. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everyone. 39 after the hour, and I love my chat room. If you haven't gotten into the chat room, make sure you make a point of that one of these days. We're at CannabisRadio.com, and when you click on the player, there's a little thing that looks like a cartoon balloon. Might be wiggling at you. You click that little balloon, it'll open you up into the chat room. You get online with Trickster Phillips and John Thomas and John Chambers and Kristen Williams. And who else is hanging out today? Big Daddy Fink, James, all hanging out in the chat room. And I just wanted to give a shout to the chat room because y'all crack me up sometimes. One of you out there was talking about how the Adult Use of Marijuana Act says we got to, protect the kids. The marijuana can't be packaged in anything that's attractive to children. And one of the chat room people said, make all the packages look like books. That'll make it unattractive to kids. Some of the kids out there, what's a book? Yeah, back in my day, we didn't have no Google. We didn't have no Wikipedia. We had the Encyclopedia Britannica, damn it. And if something happened after 1974, well, my God, you weren't going to know about it because that's the date of the encyclopedia your folks bought. So it's 1984. You're trying to do some sort of essay, some sort of report. They still got country names from 1974 in there. There's a Rhodesia sitting in there somewhere, I can't imagine growing up today. I just can't imagine because I was a pretty obsequious, perspicacious young man. And you could tell I was obsequious and perspicacious because I would read the dictionary and learn words like obsequious and perspicacious. I was a freak as a little kid, man. I read that Encyclopedia Britannica cover to cover. I read all the books except W because they lost W. My parents lost that edition. W was one of the thickest ones, and they had been using it as a seat booster, and somehow it got lost. So, if I end up on Jeopardy and the subject is things that start with a W, I'm screwed. I'm hopeless, right? But it's just amazing that, and somebody out there, I don't know who coined the phrase, they said, in the information age, ignorance is a choice. Maybe it was Sharon Ravert, but somebody coined that phrase. In the information age, ignorance is a choice. And that's something I really think, okay, so like ranking why marijuana is becoming legal, you'd have to pick what's the number one factor that's making marijuana legal? Right now, it's starting to become economics, right? States that need tax revenue, money that's being made, companies that are being born, jobs that are created. Economics is really driving the continuation of legalization. But what got us there? What got us to legalization, right? Because until Colorado and Washington legalized, it was all just, predictions of what would happen. Well, we'll make a bunch of tax money. Are you sure? Well, we don't know. We never legalized, right? So what got us there? What got us to the point where people were ready to legalize? I think the number one factor is the internet. I really do. I think the ability of people to look it up for themselves and to be able to communicate with others, and not just friends and family, but a wide network of complete strangers through Facebook and other applications, led to an awakening, led to a realization. It's that emperor wears no clothes moment for people where they like, wait a minute, I know these people. They talk about smoking pot on Facebook or wherever else. I get emails from them. They seem like decent people. And then when I hear this guy from the government says this thing about gateway theory, I go to Wikipedia and I look that up, and there's links and stuff that tell me it's not true. I think it's that access because, I grew up in Idaho. I grew up in Red State, Idaho, in the most conservative county in Red State, Idaho. And you feel so alone. You just feel, it's bad because you're a criminal, right? And you're hunted. These small town cops, they're looking for you because you're revenue. You are a gazelle on the savannah, right? You are a tasty treat for the lion. And so you grow up in this, you come up in this realm of paranoia and secrecy and hiding and clandestine meetings and outlaw mentality. So the last thing you're doing is talking about weed to people. Oh, sure, the guy that you're getting your weed from or your friends that you're smoking weed with, but they don't need convincing. They're already on our side. But you get isolated into this little island of your connections at the first and maybe even second level, right? You, your close pals that smoke, the smoking circles you're in, and the dealers and the growers you get it from in that small circle, and you're all part of the same choir, and you already agree that people ought not go to jail for weed anyway, right? So you're not out there talking to the people who need convincing, or the people who don't smoke pot but are on our side, or the people that don't smoke pot and don't really have an attitude or an opinion about it, but could easily be convinced with science and reason and logic. And we never got out to be able to talk to those people, except for the brave few that would be, normal chapters and public speakers. But by and large, the cannabis community kept to itself in small, isolated pockets everywhere you went. You could have a city like San Francisco, hundreds of thousands, millions of people in the metro area. But each pocket of smokers would be 20, 24, 25 people. There could be, 100,000 pot smokers in that area, more. But all in little powerless sects, 25, 30 apiece, little cells, if you will, of pot smokers before the internet. But with the internet and with social networking and the connections available, it expanded our reach beyond just our Toker circle, right? And in subtle ways, right? It wasn't always that you were getting on Facebook to talk about, how much you loved smoking the sticky icky. But it would be the sharing of a clip from that 70s show with Tommy Chung on it making some stoner joke. And that could be laughed at by some of your coworkers or some of your friends or some of the family that follows your Facebook page, and just subtly spread that kind of knowledge that, hey, we all think this pot thing's kind of funny, don't we? We don't think it's scary. We don't think it's a crime. It's just a joke. So why do we treat it like a crime? And that networking and the power of factorial numbers begins to snowball. And that's where this awareness grew. A lot of people will say that it's medical marijuana is what got us where we are. But I think medical marijuana also is the beneficiary of a lot of this newfound communications. Because if you remember, the history of medical marijuana is pretty geographically isolated to the Bay Area of California. That's where Dennis Perone and Brownie Mary and all the AIDS activists and the Cannabis Buyers Club was a pretty localized geographic phenomenon. But after California passes medical marijuana in 96 is also about when the internet starts to take root and people start hearing about this thing called the World Wide Web. And it starts to grow. And I believe it's the internet, and it's people hearing stories from the medical marijuana states and be able to communicate that back and forth that has been the number one factor in growing this legalization movement, the communication. Like I've said for years, if we're talking about it, we're winning. Because we got facts, science, reason, compassion, truth, and logic on our side. So that's why we're here. That's why we're here every weekday, is to continue talking about it, to continue spreading this message. And I will keep traveling this country. My goal is 50 states by the time I'm 50. I'm going to talk to people in all 50 states about marijuana legalization. We're going to bring this era of prohibition to an end. We're going to put me out of a job. We're going to make marijuana so commonplace. Well, let's not be hasty. But we are going to make marijuana so commonplace and so mainstream that at least my job will change, okay? I won't be having to report on people's houses being busted down and dogs being shot and kids being taken away and families having to relocate across the United States just to save their sick kid, and taxpayer money and resources funding helicopters to land in the national forests and rip up wild hemp plants. Those kind of nonsensical stories will be relegated to the trash bin of history. There'll still be plenty for me to report on in the world of cannabis. So let's not put me out of a job yet. Let's keep Radical Russ fed. I'm all for that. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll wind things up here on the Russ Belville Show on this beautiful Thursday. Reminding you that coming up next week, we got some more events. I just got invited to another event next Tuesday. National Cannabis Industry Association's hosting its quarterly Oregon caucus. And you know me, I love a caucus. So we'll be there. And then next Wednesday, I'll be at the Blazers versus Nuggets game, one of the last games of the season. We'll be there for a pre-party as well, and might get the chance to interview Uncle Spliffy himself. So looking forward to that. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Got to pay a few bills. Stay tuned.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Keep your cannabis cravings under control. Feed your mind with CannabisRadio.com.
Dr. Dabber, hurry! Its temperature is shooting past 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's burning up.
I'm afraid for this little guy, it's just too late.
What caused the problem?
Only Dr. Dabber can maintain the perfect temperature for a smooth-tasting, slower burn. This standard vaporizer lost all of its health benefits, sending it up in smoke.
So you're telling me that most vapor pens burn so hot they produce smoke, not vapor?
Correct. Keep away from those standard vaporizer pens and turn to Dr. Dabber. Doctor's orders.
Less heat, more flavor.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time. It's time for marijuana sales to take place in regulated businesses
and stop taking place in our neighborhoods.
It's time to create rules for testing and labeling marijuana so that consumers can know what they're getting.
Prohibition has failed.
It's time for a more sensible approach.
Vermont is ready.
We're ready.
We're ready.
Vermont is ready.
It's time to end prohibition and regulate marijuana in Vermont.
You can find Radical Russ online everywhere. Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, SoundCloud, Snapchat, LinkedIn, and Boise State University's 2400 baud modem bulletin board system from 1985.
When you are starting up a medical cannabis business, you want a fired-up lawyer who understands the needs of cannabis consumers. The law office of Lauren Vasquez is your fired-up lawyer for the cannabis industry. Visit her website, fireduplawyer.com, or call 1-855-MMJ-LAWS for more information. That's 855-665-5297 for Lauren Vasquez, your fired-up lawyer, or email fireduplawyer@gmail.com.
Remember, friends, there's more to life than marijuana. I just can't remember what it is. Why'd I come in here? This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Okay, winding things up here on the Russ Belville Show. Reminding you, tomorrow we've got another live show coming to you, and our guest on tomorrow's show is Libertarian presidential candidate Kevin McCormick. We'll be talking to him tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. Monday, we've got Dr. Mitch joining us for our regular cannabis Q&A. We'll talk about all the latest studies and surveys and data on marijuana. And I'm booking someone for Tuesday, and it slipped my mind who it is. We had just emailed before the start of the show, but I'll remember later, and we'll promote that. And then next week, flying away. April 14th, flying away to Washington, D.C. I'm going to cover the Students for Sensible Drug Policy Conference on the 15th and 16th. Then on the 17th and 18th, I'll be in New York City at Mark Kleiman's Cannabis Summit, where I've just received confirmation I will have a table and a display booth for Cannabis Radio there and the Russ Belville Show. So that's awesome because all of the major drug reformers and prohibitionists will be there. Kevin Sabet will be there. Looking forward to it. And then the 19th, 20th, 21st, the United Nations General Assembly special session is taking place. So I got to be honest, the week of the 17th, the shows, I don't know if I'll be on live or not because this is all pretty ad hoc. I don't know what I'll be able to set up or if I'll have a table or there'll be internet. And it is the United Nations, so I imagine there's a lot of security as far as what I can bring. So we will see. I might have to pre-record the shows the night before and then have the studio play them back for you. So we shall see. But lots going on. I'll be in Washington, D.C. next weekend and New York the week of the 17th, the 420 week. I'll be in New York City. And then the end of that weekend, I'll be flying back to the West Coast, we're on Sunday the 24th. I'll be at the Oregon Marijuana Business Conference. Tommy Chong is headlining, and Dr. Carl Hart will be there delivering a keynote speech. Looking forward to seeing Dr. Hart. Hope to get an interview with him. Then it's off to the Southeast, where I will be touring North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida over the span of 2 weeks. So Monday and Tuesday we'll be in North Carolina with the Unity Torch. This is a cannabis community rally from Portland, Maine, all the way down to Miami, Florida, uniting the East Coast cannabis reform organizations. I think it's a great idea. So I'll be with them, joining them in Raleigh, North Carolina, making our way down to Charlotte, making our way, continuing into South Carolina, probably the Greenville area, and then into Atlanta, Georgia, Macon, Georgia, Jacksonville, Florida, and then on the way down to Miami, Florida. I'll just be road tripping with them. So again, the live lineup might be sketchy as far as how often I can be on live, but I am so looking forward to getting to the South. I've never been to North Carolina, never been to South Carolina, so I get 2 more states to add to my 50 states by 50 goal, and more states in the South. Always happy to go to the South. It's exciting to meet the people down there. So lots going on. First week of May, I'll be in Miami, and the end of that weekend, I'll be in Dallas, Fort Worth for the Global Marijuana March on May 7th. Back to Orlando the week after that, then Alaska the weekend after that, and Washington, D.C. at the end of that month, and then Aspen. We're going to be everywhere here on the Russ Belville Show, and we couldn't do it without your support. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast and joining us on CannabisRadio.com as often as you can. Let your friends know, get them signed up, get them to download this podcast, get our numbers up, and help us spread this growing truth about cannabis from coast to coast. I'm so honored and proud to be able to do this for you every day. Love our chatters, love our regulars, love our VIPs. That sound means that we're just about out of time here for hour 2, but we'll be back tomorrow with more news and interviews you can use for the cannabis community. For everyone at CannabisRadio.com, I'm Radical Russ, live and direct from beautiful legal Potland, Oregon, on the banks of the Willamette River, looking at majestic Mount Hood in the distance. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at RadicalRuss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down.